All right, what's up, guys? Doing our first video podcast. So excited to do this. Coach Walz got to go to Nebraska, see Coach Frost, and so going to talk a little bit about football and Nebraska and kind of maybe what he learned from that. So we'll get into it. Walz, how's it going, man? It's good to be in Iowa.
It's going great, man. It's nice to be doing the podcast from the basement here. I feel like we're Wayne and Garth from the old Wayne's World movies, man.
Party on.
Yeah, party on is right. This is going to be fun, so I'm looking forward to it, man. Let's get into it. It'll be good.
Sweet. So what was your guys' hookup? How'd you get into Nebraska? Obviously, everyone's kind of wanting to get in there, I think, right now with what Frost was doing over at UCF and stuff. I know your head coach, who we had on the podcast before, but how'd you guys get into it?
Yeah, Coach Nelson coached with a lot of these guys quite a bit, actually. I think a lot of them got their start at Northern Iowa. Coach Frost, I think, was there for 2 years. It was kind of his first full-time gig. So he coached linebackers there, was a co-defensive coordinator. And then he's got 3 other guys that actually coached with him as well. Eric Shenander, Javon DeWitt, who coaches outside linebacker. Shenander's the D coordinator.
Yeah.
So he's kind of the guy we know really well. He actually coached tight ends with Coach Nelson. So a pretty strong bond there. Javon DeWitt actually lived with Coach Nelson for a while and coaches outside linebackers now at Nebraska. And then Mario Verduzco was our other connection. He coached quarterbacks at UNI again for 10, 15 years as he was with Coach Nelson the whole time. So a lot of those guys still really good friends.
Sure.
And then obviously Coach Frost, will help hook up a lot of the guys that helped him early on in the business. So that's kind of how we got
with Shenander, you said. He was with Frost. Was that all the way back to the Oregon days? Is that right?
Yeah. So he'd met him actually before at UNI. They coached together.
Okay.
So him and Frost were really good buddies at UNI. Developed a good friendship. Actually, Shenander was the best man in his wedding.
Huh.
So they kind of got to know each other really well. Both really smart guys, got along well, and then Frost hooked him up out in Oregon. He got to work for a while, I think as a GA, and then kind of got on the field in a capacity there. And then Chip Kelly liked him a lot too, so took him to the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's kind of the rest of the story for him, man.
Yeah.
He worked his way up quickly. He's a bright dude. Shenander's an awesome guy. He's a really good guy to work with.
Well, that's always the cool thing I think that you hear about Frost, even when going from UCF to Nebraska, is he just brought the whole staff. He finds guys like you were saying that grind and guys he likes to be around, and if he does that, he stays loyal to them and they come and work for him.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, I think one of the first things that you have to have with Coach Frost is, Coach Frost is a super intelligent guy. I mean, he's smart as heck. A lot of people know he's a Nebraska guy, but he actually started out at Stanford. So, I mean, obviously had to have really good grades, wanted to go play there and learn from Bill Walsh.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one of the first things. So I think he's probably, if he's hiring guys, they got to be pretty intelligent guys, and most of the guys that I saw on staff, well, I'd say all of them, extremely intelligent guys, well-spoken, right. And then it's like you said, he took the whole staff. They're just super down-to-earth guys. I mean, It wasn't like you're going there and it's some big-time guy, and it's like, okay, I'll give you 5 minutes. Literally, I mean, it's like, hey, were you guys able to park okay? Were you guys able to find everything okay? I mean, is everything good? Do you need a water? I mean, there's times they're running in the meeting room, grabbing us water. I mean, you see a lot of that servant leadership from those guys.
Yeah.
Just no big time stuff. I mean, and
that's hard to come by in college. I mean, We've been to a bunch of them, and you've been to probably thousands more than I've been to. But a lot of times you go there, and they're the top dogs, and they want to make you feel like, I don't know if they want to make you feel like it, but they're pretty flamboyant about they're thinking that they're very highly of themselves.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, these guys. I mean, you can see where kids would really like them because I think they're super genuine. They're honest with you. They're not trying to sell you on anything. They're not trying to sell you that I'm a really, really smart coach. I'm better than you. I mean, they're just guys that realize that they love football. They've got an unbelievable job. They have an unbelievable responsibility to help young men, and at the same time, they understand the responsibility to help high school coaches and guys who maybe can help them a little bit with players, but also it's like, you know what? I was in the same shoes as you guys.
Sure.
So I mean, it's cool to sit down with guys that get it, I think, and then you see that camaraderie of that whole staff. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, you see why they were able to meld that team together so quickly because they do the same thing as a staff. I mean, they get along really, really well.
So what are some of the big things that you took from it? I know you talked about, obviously a few things that we've already talked about as far as how they did certain parts of team, how they set up practice. The coolest part to me was, and I'm sure you'll explain it a little bit better, but just like they've only, they kept it a 2-hour practice, and it was just, they were going the whole time, but they're not keeping you there for 4.5 hours like we went to Michigan, 5-hour practice, and just kind of, it took a lot of time and a lot of downtime in between stuff. Where we talk about Nebraska, it sounds like, hey, it was every second they were doing something, they were getting a lot of reps, and maybe even if a thing was 5 minutes, but they got their 12 plays in and it was only in 3 minutes, boom, they're done, they got their 12 plays in.
Yeah, everything was well scripted. I mean, you could tell that they had all kinds of preparation. So they knew drills that they were going to do, which I'm sure everybody, does beforehand. But I mean, even as a tempo team, it wasn't like Coach Frost or Coach Verduzco or whatever was just calling plays.
Yeah.
It was all scripted. And the same thing with the defense. The defense had a script that they were sticking to, and they were practicing that. So I thought that was one thing. The other thing that they said that they did beforehand, which I thought was pretty brilliant on their part, was part of their meetings the week leading up, because they were super smart about how they set it. They practiced Friday, and then they went on spring break.
Yeah.
Well, by practicing Friday, it gave them the 20-hour work week for the whole week.
Sure.
So they got to meet with their guys, still lift, still do all this stuff. But the day before, they were actually to kind of go through like a walk-through mock practice. They didn't put on any pads or anything.
Sure.
But you're able to say, okay, here's what we're going to do period 1, here's what we're going to do period 2. Because it's a brand new group of guys.
Yeah, they'd never been through it with them.
Yeah, so I mean, they'd never know what to expect. It's easy for them to just sit up there and say it.
Sure.
They're able to just kind of get them on the field, walk through it, and show them exactly what they needed to do. So I thought that was pretty brilliant too. I mean, any coach could go do that, especially if you're going into a new situation. So I thought that was one thing that was really good. The other thing with the way that they practice, they're almost always going 2 groups at the same time. So obviously in the spring you're going to do more competition stuff where it's your offense versus your defense. You're trying to get better at football.
Yeah.
All right. So it might not be something they maybe do as much of during the season, but I know they still do a ton. But they're going 2 groups at the same time. So they'd split their staff. So one end of the field they're going plus 35 in. The other end of the field they're going plus 35 in. And they split up their teams however they'd want to. Mm-hmm. All right. So you could be going 1s versus 1s, 2 versus 2s, however you want to do it. They just had it broken up because they didn't know who any of the guys were.
Right.
Really. I mean, they knew names. They'd watched a little bit of film on them, but they're like, hey, we're going to give everyone a fair shake. So I think that's the other thing that they're able to do is build rapport with the kid. You're going to get a ton of reps. They're going to watch all of the film. You're going to get coached by a variety of guys, and it's not just going to be, set guys that you've already kind of handpicked, and it's like, all right, we're going to coach these guys, and hopefully you guys keep up.
Right.
No, we're going to take everybody. We're going to practice you as much as we can. You're going to get a ton of reps. You're going to get on film. You're going to get coached.
Well, that was one of the big stories that you hear out of UCF with the linebacker is they didn't give him the time of day with the old staff, and then Frost goes in there and it's like, hey, everyone's on equal ground. Doesn't matter. Give me the guys, the 11 guys that are going to be the best, and you guys are going to be the ones out there. And that's really when he started blossoming into being able to play at the college level. Obviously, he always did in high school, but Frost comes in. It sounds like does I'm sure the exact same thing you're talking about and says, look, I don't know who you guys are and I don't really care. Find me the 11 best and everyone's going to get a shot. And that's kind of how he started getting to play in college, and then obviously became an amazing college football player.
Yeah, they're going to have a new set of eyes to evaluate these guys, and it's awesome. It's a fresh slate for them. And again, he had the quote that everyone's been throwing up on Twitter, hey, we're not going to yell and cuss at guys, and they don't.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some cuss words in practice, yeah.
Sure.
But they're not, that happens, but it's not like they're demeaning a kid ever. I mean, it's always going to be a deal where we're going to teach you how to do it, okay? And they don't do it on the field. I mean, they might correct something in between, but it's like, dude, run the next rep.
See, that was the craziest part that I thought of when you were telling me about it, because even at Houston, we were going fast. There still seemed to be a lot of coaching, which kind of slowed some stuff down, where you said at Nebraska, it was like, hey, let's go, next play, and then we'll use all this film that we got, and now we'll coach off of it and get it fixed.
Exactly. So that was the coolest thing for me. Every coach is on the field. They're still making sure guys are lined up. It's the first day. But they're not stopping to, whoa, we missed this combo. They run the play again. None of that at all. All right. And I asked kind of Coach Shenander about that a little bit afterwards. And he said it was a Chip Kelly thing. Chip Kelly had said, it doesn't make much sense to me to make 10 other guys run the play again who didn't mess up when one guy messes up.
Yeah.
because I think just as coaches sometimes you get control freak, or it's got to look perfect, it's got to be this way, and I think we just make them run it. They're going to be a perfect play, perfect rep. Whereas they're like, just run the play. The more reps that these kids get, eventually they're going to be able to figure it out, right? It's like any other kid. You're going to fall down riding a bike, fall down, boom, you're just going to keep rolling.
Sure.
Okay? So I love that. I think it's a great way to go about practice. Breaking up their staff, I thought, too, was really cool, because now you could kind of delegate some of that responsibility. You'd have maybe some of your older guys on one end, and then you'd have some of your younger guys on the other end. The younger players that they had going down there, too, they're able to slow it down just a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously not as versed in whatever it might be. So they're taking those freshmen, and you see why UCF had a ton of freshmen playing.
Yeah.
A ton of young guys. So, I mean,
That's the name of the game, right? Is getting those young guys as many reps as you can possibly get, and how do you fit that in? And really, spring's one of the best times to do it, because when it gets in the fall, as much as you want to help all the kids on your team, it gets difficult, because all you're looking at is what's going to keep your job, which is the kids that are playing. So being able to get those kids in as many reps as they can get, and also be able to see, are they going to be able to play for us this year?
Yeah.
Giving them a chance.
And I think the other cool thing about that, I mean, by doing all those reps, yes, they learn the scheme. I also think they're smart about the scheme that they do run. If you want to go fast, you can't be complex.
Yeah.
So I think it makes it easier for the offensive line. It makes it easier for the skill kids to be able to play early, because they're super smart and they've refined their offense so much that they've gotten it to a point where they can teach it quickly.
Right.
And they can teach it thoroughly, and they can get these guys on the field much, much faster. And that's, again, having that continuity of staff, it makes it even easier. So Frost had said, this first day went better than our first day did at UCF. Because they'd already done it.
Sure, because the coaches at least had done it.
Yeah, and they're able to refine the way that they could do it. So, again, that coaching continuity, and I think, again, probably sitting in staff meetings and bouncing ideas off of each other and not having egos. It's like, hey, Coach, what if we tried doing it this way?
Yeah.
And then rather than just be like, well, we've never done that before, they're thinking in terms of, God, you know what? That might be a better way to do it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that open dialogue, too.
Well, that's what it seemed like the most that you've talked about is it was none of it was. And by none of it, I mean almost none of it was just like, oh, well, that's just what we did. That's what we've always done in football, so we're going to redo the play because it wasn't perfect. It was like they sat down and said, okay, should we redo the play when it's not perfect? Here's the pros, here's the cons. No, it actually takes more time when a guy falls down, and that doesn't actually get him any better doing it again because he tripped and fell down one time. Okay, well, we'll just go on to the next play. We'll talk about it in film. We'll get going. So it's like it's been no stone has been unturned. They've said, what is the best way that we can get the optimum amount of time out of our practices, which is so important, like we've talked about, because you only get so many hours to get to be in pads, and it's less and less every year, and it's going to continue, I would assume, to be less and less. So how do you manage your 2 hours that you're allowed, whatever they're allowed to have, and get the maximum amount of quality reps in that time? And it seems like they've actually, like you said, had open dialogue discussion about what's the best way for us to do this.
There's no doubt about it. And I think, again, with kids too, their attention spans are shorter anyway.
Sure.
So I think the more ways you can get guys on the field, the more ways you can get guys involved. I mean, they've got backup quarterbacks, backup receivers. You've got other GAs, guys that love football, whatever it is. They're signaling. They're spotting the ball. They've got guys that are involved doing these things. It keeps all these kids involved rather than one group of 11 running plays, one group of 11 trying to stop them, and then everyone else is watching on the side. Same thing in Indy. While I'm sitting there talking, there's 16 guys on the offensive line that aren't getting better.
Right.
So, I mean, rather than having this long oration about something and this long speech, why not just say, you know what, I'll save that for the meeting room. And you know what, let's get these guys moving.
That's right.
Reps, boom. It's like I said, when Frost was done with the script, it wasn't like, okay, I'm going to punish these guys with more reps. It's like, cool, nice job, boom, blow the horn. All right, and then they'd go to a period where they could slow it down a little bit more, drill into some of the fundamentals they wanted to do. Maybe it's some small group work, whatever it might be. But that was the time they'd able to kind of teach it and talk about it. But again, they're still not just standing around listening to a guy talk. So, I mean, it makes total sense.
Well, you even said even all the way to, how they warmed up. And and I know you really liked that, and I thought it was cool too. And what we've talked about the past several years is just And especially as an offensive lineman, for me, just how much you hate warming up because it seems like a waste of time. You're there to play football, not to warm up. And a lot of it is protecting the kids, but a lot of it is, coaches, strength coaches looking out for themselves because they don't want to get fired because they got some kid hurt. So they said, we did our due diligence, whatever. But it was like at Nebraska, it's like they even thought about that. What's the best way, that most beneficial that we can get what we need to get their body temperature up, get it done quick, and get going. So how'd they do that? Because I think that was exciting. And we've had coaches on that say, they don't do almost a warm-up anymore because it's just time to go. We want to play football.
Yeah, I mean, you say like an organized team warm-up. Now, they're warming up.
Right.
But they're doing football things. So they do a zero period that they call a zero period for 15 minutes. And it can look like any number of things. But the cool thing for me that I loved, in the zero period, centers, QBs, and running backs. Sorry, defensive guys, I was watching the offense. All right, but they were working too. Don't worry. But centers, QBs, and running backs were all on one side of the field. So I think they had 5 centers, 5 QBs that were in camp. So one guy's just yelling out the play. So assistant O-line guy, whoever it might be, yells the play. Boom, they run the play. They make the quarterback line the running back up. All right, running back knew where to line up, but they're making the quarterback having to think and talk and do all these things. So he'd run the play, running back runs all the way through, it'd be about 10-yard run. All the center and the QB have to do is turn around. So they turn around, boom, they run the play the other direction. Same thing, next play.
And you said each of them have their own cadence, right?
Yes, so each one's just running their own cadence. It's not like they have to wait for one guy as everyone lined up and everybody go. Boom, it's just those guys right there, ready, set, go. And they snap it off and they roll. They get 40 plays in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. And again, they're not killing anybody. They're not dying or whatever, but it's thinking, getting guys lined up, understanding the play. Where's the back need to be? Who's my read? The center's having to take his steps. Mm-hmm. You could put a backup center or a student assistant that they had out there with the bag. He could hit the bag. But that's 5 minutes, and you're getting 40 reps of snaps, listening to the play call, maybe seeing a signal, however it might be. To me, that's a beneficial 5 minutes. If that was all you did for a 5-minute warm-up, that would be really, really good.
Sure.
Okay? After they do that, so as you don't have your centers. So offensive line coaches, I got the rest. What are the guards and the tackles doing? Okay? They're down in the end zone, and they just have a short 5-minute warm-up they do. Could just be a regular core bag drill that they did. So they'd go over some bags, get their feet moving or whatever. Well, after that, they're doing skip pulls, folds, open pulls for pin pull stuff. That's all they did. So again, what are you doing? Okay, yeah, they're moving around, they're running, but they're not doing high knees, they're not doing knee hugs.
Stuff they'll never use.
Yeah, they're actually, raising my core temperature, my hips are getting loosened up, I'm coming out of a stance, I'm running, I'm finding a landmark, I'm understanding skills that I need to be able to do.
Right.
So, to me, that made perfect sense. After another 5 minutes, so boom, that's done. All the running backs learn how to run pass routes. So, QBs, receivers, running backs all go together, they're working two-man combinations. So their favorite two-man combinations, they do that for 5 minutes. Okay, Are they going full speed yet? Probably not.
Yeah.
But you're still completing passes. Offensive line down there, what are they doing? Pass sets. All right, working on things where they're not having to hit much, but again, you're getting some of your small fundamental work in while you're rolling there. Okay. The last one, now they pull them all together and they actually go full team, and it's just team takeoff into the end zone. So get the whole team going for that zero period. They get 5 minutes just running plays as fast as they can. 1s, 2s, 3s. How many plays can we run in 5 minutes? And again, not super intensive, but you're moving around, you're thinking.
And you're at least thinking some football stuff. You're doing football things to get warmed up.
Yeah. After all that, so after zero period, they do go down into the end zone and they do a 5-minute dynamic warm-up. But I love how they set it up, okay? It's all by position group. So all the offensive line, they're all in a line. All your tight ends would be in a line. All your linebackers, however you want to break it up, but they're all in the same groups.
Right.
So you don't have offensive lineman, running back, wide receiver, quarterback, senior kid that we all love, this guy down here, and they're all working at different paces.
Yeah.
Okay. The offensive line is going to work at the same speed that most big, large offensive linemen work. All right. And they'd have a player come out front and he'd help lead the thing. So he'd say, all right, you got this, and they're running through 20. They go down. Every group's kind of working on their own. Right? They go back, strength coach blows the whistle, they have a different drill that they do, they're going for their 20 yards. It's a back pedal, it's a turn, it's a shuffle, whatever it might be, but again, football specific moves, they're doing it for literally 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
And they are gassed when they're done. But they go 5 minutes hard, they've already done some work prior to that, boom, they get a breakdown, they're off and they're running. So, again, no team stretch, clap, 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 Tigers, you know, stretch, whatever it might be.
Right.
Yeah, but to me it was awesome because, again, I just love being in your position group. Right. So you're the offensive line coach. You're still there encouraging your guys.
Yeah, you're working with your guys the whole time, and they're working with each other the whole time.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, it just made perfect sense. You know, and I know there's some value in coaches, you know, hey, you should go out and meet with the other guys and teach the other guys. You can do that anytime. You don't have to do that. You already said it. We have limited amount of practice time.
Right. Yeah, you only got so much.
Yeah, I mean, I can go bump knuckles with my linebackers anytime after practice, before practice. Hey, Louie, how you doing, buddy? Let's go. You know, I mean, I don't need to do it during practice.
Yeah.
All right, so I thought it made perfect sense. Let's have valuable use of our time, especially in pre-practice.
That's awesome. That's you know, like you said, they've even thought about the warm-ups. You know, another thing you talk about is a little bit, and we don't need to get into specifics of what they call stuff, but they get into. They've got a lot of tags, but the tags go from gap scheme over to zone scheme. So that was something that I thought was kind of interesting. So whatever it was, they're going to read something or whatever, if it's backside, front side, but it can be the same tag for power read as it is for zone read. It's the exact same thing. Or if it's locking the backside for an RPO, it could be the same thing as locking the backside for pin and pull RPO or whatever that is. They use, like you said, and again, without getting too specific for their sake, but being able to put tags on the end of these plays to keep it simple, but be able to make it look, again, confusing to a defense or like there's a lot of stuff in.
Yeah, they've gotten so good at being able to, and Coach Verduzco was awesome with us. He sat down with us for literally, I want to say 8 hours out of his day, and it was a busy time for him, moving back and forth, having to worry about his family in Florida. So, I mean, he was unbelievable. Meeting with him was phenomenal. But they've done such a great job where they've taken all of these different offensive ideas, and obviously most of it is coming from Oregon in his time with Chip. But being able to drill it down to simple rules. All right, so that's when they would teach these plays, they'd always say, teach the rule. Teach the rule of the play. So when the kids would learn the rule of the play, it's like they're not sitting here thinking about, okay, what does the number mean? What's my assignment on this? They just teach them the overall general rule of the play. So they call it, oh, this is inside zone blocking. Okay?
Yeah.
And it's like you said, they had a tag for the backside. Okay, they would run that. Well, hey, it's still inside zone, but the backside is locking on to the big guys. All right, so they make it very, very simple in that. So they learn the entire rule. Okay, when that's called, oh yeah, hey, it's inside zone on the front side. Backside, oh, I got a man block. So it makes it super easy. And it's like you said, okay, you go from zone to, say, pin pull. It'd be the exact same.
Right.
All right, so they'd make the same kind of call. Okay, I know the front side is pin pull, but the backside now, okay, what's my rule? Well, if you didn't tag anything, cut everybody off.
Right.
If we did make that simple tag on the backside,
whatever that tag is, we're doing that on the backside.
I'm blocking on the backside. It made it really, really easy for those kids, and I think they could learn it quickly. But they'd categorize everything by run scheme, so that was the way kids could learn it quickly. Okay,
right.
That number means it's this kind of scheme. It's a man scheme.
Yeah.
That number means it's a zone scheme. All right. The last one would mean it's a gap scheme. So I think they're able to figure those things out very, very quickly, and they'd really, really drilled into that, right? Same thing in the pass game, right? The names that they called things made sense.
Right.
They didn't call something Jimmy when the guy's not running some route that starts with a J.
Yeah.
All right. Or Jimmy, okay, there's a Y in it. Is the Y running a route here? No, the X is.
No, when I was at South Carolina in 72, Jimmy's the one that made it up, so that's why we call it that. Oh, great. I'm sure your receivers know that.
Yeah. So, I mean, the plays that the names that they came up with were never longer than 2 syllables. It was super simple. It was a 1-syllable word, so if a guy we didn't get the call, the guy could figure it out quickly, and at the same time, when they're teaching that stuff, they learn it very, very fast.
Yeah.
All right, so I mean, even there's like me, when they gave us a chance to watch a little bit of film, I didn't know what they called everything. Right, in the pass game, Coach Verduzco didn't have a chance to tell us all the pass game. And I mean, honestly, we have our own pass game at Ankeny. All you guys got your own pass game. I didn't need to call it what Nebraska calls it, but when I wanted to look up concepts, guess what? It was easy for me to decipher. I'm like, I bet that's a wheel route with something, or I bet that's a post route with something, and 99 times out of 100 I was right.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like if I can sit there and I can watch film through your cut-ups and I can kind of figure out what it is,
Then the kids can remember it.
I'm pretty sure they can figure it out pretty fast.
Right.
So I mean, the way that they've thought it out and the way they've taught it, and again, by teaching that simple base rule, and they've watered it down to the most basic level where these kids can learn, it's genius.
Yeah.
And that's how they can go so fast. It's awesome.
Well, like you said, that's important because they do go so fast. I mean, it's so they can't be doing a bunch of different thinking. So it's like they've thought about it all around that. Hey, we want to go fast. So what's the easiest, simplest way we can get it signaled in? We can get signaled our formations in, and we can get it to our kids to where they know what it is, and they've got a system for all of it. So that was the coolest part to me was just. Again, how much they've thought of every single thing. When you went and watched practice, was it in the morning?
Yeah.
Is that something they always do, or is that just something they did in the spring? What was the thought process behind that? Because I know Chip Kelly's talked about that a lot.
So again, you're like, they practice at 5:45 a.m. So I left here, it's a 3-hour drive or like 2.5. So I left at like 2:30 in the morning. Make sure I had to be there at 5.
Yeah.
And Coach Shenander's sitting there. He's already got 2 cups of coffee. He's like, "Hey man, you ready? Let's go." I'm like, "Oh, let's go."
Let's roll.
I already had plenty of Monsters, so it really didn't matter. But he's like, "Hey, trust me, it's not normal. We'll wait till at least 7." Or something like that. But I mean, they get them up in the morning, and again, people have always asked Frost about it. I'm sure they asked Chip about it, but they had research on that.
Yeah.
We don't want our kids partying. So we want them to wake up early in the morning. Boom, there you go. Right now, they're not going to skip practice, but they might skip class. If they got class in the morning, they might skip it.
Sure.
And Scott even said, "I skip classes in the morning." I was at Nebraska. I skipped several classes in the morning too. Not going to lie, but they wake up in the morning. They want to go play football.
Yeah.
So I mean, they go do that, and he goes, and not only that, they're awake for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So he's like, our kids will be better students. They'll be better citizens. They're going to be more awake. They're going to get fed. When they go to the facility, they get fed.
Sure.
And then they even had it down to like hormone levels, kids' testosterone levels, growth hormone. We're all alert. So I mean, we want our big guys who want to get big. We make them lift in the morning.
Yeah.
And we make these guys get up and do these things, but there's science behind all of it. Again, it's not just, Scott flipped a coin and said, I want to practice in the morning because
I like the mornings better.
Yeah, I want to play golf in the afternoon. Maybe he does. I don't know. I bet he's probably a pretty good golfer. But at the same time, there's research behind why they do it, And he's got me thinking about, I'm like, it makes sense. Shenander said the same thing. He's like, here's the other thing that happens. We practice early through like Thursday. Well, think about all the recovery time now they have.
Yeah.
So you've practiced in the morning, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or whatever. They probably have Monday off. It'd be one of those days off. But anyway, you practice early in the morning on Thursday.
So you're getting like almost a whole other 12 hours that other teams aren't.
An extra 12 hours of recovery before they have to do a regular walkthrough or whatever on Friday, and then they play a game on Saturday.
Sure.
So he says, our guys seem like they're fresher on Saturday. Okay. Now, I don't know what their practice schedule is like on Friday. I've heard they still go fast. They still sling it around. But guess what? You've had all that recovery to be able to get that done.
Right.
So, again, I can't speak intelligently on it, but I would think that they probably still go fast on a Friday and throw the ball around because they want to maintain their timing. But the kids are a lot fresher because they have practice in the morning. Now they get all that extra recovery time from it.
Well, another thing you'd think would be cool is I remember at Houston, the big worry was when we had the 11 o'clock game, is everyone going to be ready in the morning? You guys better make sure you're ready in the morning. Yeah. You got to wake up at 6. And I was used to it because I was already with my wife and stuff, so I was used to waking up at we lived out in Pearland, so it was an hour drive sometimes. If there was traffic, 10 minutes if there was no traffic. But I was used to waking up at 5 in the morning for workouts, but I guess not all the skilled kids were. So they were all freaking out, like, are we going to be ready to play in the morning on Saturday? And, that was always the big, oh, no. But if you're used to practicing at 6 a.m. anyways, then you're ready for those 11 o'clock games. And if it's a 8 o'clock game, hey, you get to sleep in that day. You get a treat for game day.
Yeah, I didn't think that nobody looked tired to me.
Yeah,
and nobody looked groggy or whatever. And Frosty said that like a lot of the guys were already there at like 4:30. They're all amped up for it or
ready
whatever.
to go.
So, I mean, you get your guys up early. I just think there's a lot of benefits to it. It's got us thinking now at Ankeny, we might try to do something like that at least.
Sure.
At least for a couple of days. Just for some of the simple reasons that. I think we could get a lot of our work done in the morning. If you got JV games on a Monday,
right?
You're going to have to cut your practice short on Monday anyway to let your JV guys go. Well, if we practice in the morning, maybe now we get a little bit more done for an hour and a half. our JV guys don't come in on a Monday. Now maybe we can do something after school with just our varsity guys and just keep it light.
Right.
Get out there. Maybe it's some special teams, but I mean, I think there's a lot of benefits to being able to do some things like that. It makes you think again because there's tangible evidence behind it, and obviously it's successful.
Well, I've always thought the coolest part was being able to watch film in the afternoon, and I'm sure that's probably a little more in college than you can than in high school. But I know we went to Texas and saw multiple teams practicing in the morning and then coming in later in the afternoon. But the coolest part I've always thought about that was, you get to do it. You're doing the practice is, and while it's still fresh in your mind, before you go to sleep, before you forget it by the next day at 6 p.m., later that day you're watching film on what you just did. Okay, we need to get this, and this corrected. Yeah. Now, your pre-practice meetings aren't 2.5 hours and you're bored out of your mind. Your pre-practice meetings are, here's 30 minutes, 15 minutes is what we need to get done as we go out to practice. And now your later meetings are the ones that you want to watch anyways because you're wanting to watch yourself and see how you did at practice. So to me, that all times up a lot better when you can do it that way too.
I mean, I don't know about you, but when we get our kids, so at Ankeny, our guys have 8 classes. I mean, and we don't have an athletic period like we did at Broken Arrow.
Yeah.
So our guys, when they come out, a lot of them are fried. And I don't blame them. If I was a kid, and I say that to my kids all the time in chemistry, I'm like, I feel for you guys. You got 8 classes. I mean, we had 7 periods when I was in high school, but I always had at least one open. So, I mean, I feel bad for some of those kids that are carrying 8 classes. Some of them were taking AP courses. They're gutting it out. They had to lift in the morning, right, for their early bird class. They go to 8 classes, and then they come to us, and now we're going to have to get a lot of work done for 2 to 2.5 hours. I mean, to me, get that stuff done in the morning.
Yeah.
All right? So, twofold, right? I think if we practice in the morning, all right, we get our guys awake, they're going to be a little bit better as the day goes on. Not only that, we can feed them.
Sure.
Right? So as soon as
they leave, breakfast.
As soon as they leave practice or whatever, we can feed them. We can have a snack for them in the morning. There's a lot of things you can get done there. You can kind of control that environment, okay? The other thing is they know they have a practice in the morning. They're going to go to bed earlier.
Yeah. They have to.
Yeah, there's no excuse. They're going to get home earlier because they're not doing the stuff after school. So they can hammer out some of that homework early on. And then I think they go to bed earlier knowing that I'm going to have to be up at 5:30 and then go knock out this practice. I don't know. I think there seems to be like a lot of benefits to it personally.
It'd be cool. It'd be cool to be able to look into it. I know you guys are looking into it, so I'm kind of excited to see how that works for you guys. But getting back to UCF now a little bit, because I know before going to Nebraska, because you've been watching Frost, and you like Frost, obviously, because you've always been a big Nebraska fan, went to Nebraska, and so I know you've got a little bit of UCF film from other places, I'm sure, all on the straight and narrow, but I know you've watched at least them on ESPN, so what are some of the cool things that you've seen them do that, not that you've just picked up from practice. We're not going to give away anything. Not that I think they probably did anything to give away first day anyways, but what are some things that you really like about that offense that he's running, some of the wrinkles that they have off of it?
I love that you have to defend the entire field. So, I mean, they use everything on every single play. So, I mean, they've got a ton of RPOs. They can make you have to defend those things. So maybe you have to play some man coverage. You have to play some one high stuff. Well, now you got to contend with the running QB.
Right.
Every D coordinator you talk to in America is scared when they're one high because a lot of times now a running QB can be a problem. They want to stay too high. So that can create some disadvantages to them. I think they really do a great job with that. They get the ball to athletes in space. All right. He's not just one of these guys that just goes super fast or whatever. He has a plan for P10. So when he comes out of a timeout, I know he's got shifts. He's got motions. Mm-hmm. He's going to line up in empty, and he's going to see how you're going to play empty. He's going to take a fast dude. He's going to put him in the slot. He's going to move him back into the backfield. He's going to take him out of the backfield and go to put him into place. All right. The other thing that I love that they've done is they've really recruited tight ends. I think they get a bad rap because, they're all 10 personnel. Yeah. No, they're in empty, and they're probably in 12 personnel.
Yeah.
They'll get 2 bigger guys on the field for multiple reasons. Mismatch in the pass game, and then they can block you. So their screens are a lot better because they have bigger bodies blocking smaller bodies.
Right.
So they do a great job, I think, in the screen game, if you want to call it your key screens, your now screens, your bubble screens. They do a fantastic job of it. I think that's something I think I want to get better as a coach. So it's one of the things I took. I learned a lot from, I think, some of the ways that they block it, how they personnel it. I love that. I love their use of unbalanced formations.
Yeah,
All
they
right?
do that a lot. Seems like
a ton of unbalanced formations, and then the way they can tempo unbalanced formations. So they hit a big play, boom, they're going to get you in your unbalanced checks, and they have a way to either go fast or they have a way to play check. So they'll, obviously hard count you or whatever, look to the sideline and be able to check it that way. But they've always got a field unbalanced play, and they've always got boundary unbalanced plays. All right, and they're able to go into games, and you start, I'm sure a ton of you guys have heard about, their menu plays.
Right.
So they'll carry those into a game, and they're able to do those fast. One word and another word. Usually it's a 2-word play, and they can get those things going. So it's got me thinking a little bit more about, simplifying those things, but then having the unbalanced ability to do it. And then again, it's plays off of it. They'll run a ton of, inside zone bubble, inside zone bubble, inside zone bubble. Well, here comes the bubble and go.
Right.
Or they're just simply running the play action pass off of it. A lot of the tight end in the flat, and then you saw it later on in the year. They kept running they call it, they call the little arrow route by the tight end or whatever. They run the arrow screen, they flip it out there. Well, now they run the arrow, and the tight end runs the go route. So I mean, a lot of stuff like that I think that just kind of builds off of it. The one other thing that Coach Verduzco said too that I would like to get better at too as a play caller if I'm ever doing it again was, I think he said they motioned or moved on like 48% of their plays. And he said, that wasn't really by design. It's just kind of
what they ended up doing.
But I think that it clarifies things for the quarterback, especially if you're running your RPO game. It lets you know if it is man or zone. They do a fantastic job too because everyone's playing man coverage against RPOs. They have some really cool man coverage RPO beaters too. So I just think the whole system of things that they try to do is phenomenal. And then, us being RTP, UCF still runs power. All right, so
which is important, and it's important at Nebraska. It seems like just and I know very little about Nebraska, but just from being an OU fan growing up, and my grandpa talking about it, in some of the old school games of just Nebraska running power, and whatever that film is that you had me watch a few years ago with Nebraska running G lead like 15 times in one game or whatever. So it's kind of cool to be able to bring that back and still run it at Nebraska, be able to run power.
Yeah, they're going to get into some unbalanced stuff and still run power. They still run one back power, and then they still have option.
Yeah.
And again, it's not a huge thing of what they do, but you better prepare for it.
You got to be ready.
So I just think just the way that they're able to teach it, because you hear a lot of coaches out there. Well, how the heck can you teach, a 2-back run game? How can you teach zone? How can you teach pin pull? How can you teach gap? How can you teach option? They know how to teach the rules.
Right.
All right. There's certain plays, that when they're blocking their perimeter screens, those blocking rules carry over to how they block option. They carry over to how they're blocking power read. They carry over to how they're blocking some of their dart read stuff. So, when they know one rule and they can hear one word that kind of triggers that, it's the same rule as this.
Right.
I think it makes it real easy to add and teach and move beyond, oh, man, we got to teach an entirely new play. It's like, no,
you're doing the same rules you did over here.
Same rules. We're just mix matching our rules.
Yeah.
So it's phenomenal the way they're able to teach it and make it super easy for players.
Well, I can't believe it's something I hadn't thought of, and obviously I'm not that smart, but it's something I hadn't thought of as far as like unbalanced. Normally the coaches, and we've talked about it before, they've only got so many checks to unbalance, and so when you do that, but you do a hurry up to unbalance, now you're really putting a defense. Now either they've got to really all year or at least that week have a bunch of different checks that they use and be able to get that out there quick, or they've got to only have a couple, and you're going to know what it is when you do go hurry up on balance. And so it kind of gives you a little bit of advantage as far as that goes, because it is two things that are tough to do, and you're making them do it really fast and get it going.
And I think too, along those lines, I think they probably have it all planned out. Again, I didn't get a chance to ask them, and who knows if they'd share it or not, and they don't have to. But
sure.
I think, if you're hitting a big play in a certain personnel, so say they hit a big play in 12, they've got to have a 12 menu. So maybe they have an unbalanced, with like tight end wing.
Right.
Right. Whereas now if you hit a big play in 11 personnel, now it's going to be a different look. So maybe now it'll be trips to the field with the tight end over. So I think they have to have that probably already predetermined, pre-called, whatever. Okay, boom, what personnel are we in? Well, we're in rodeo personnel, where the heck it is. Boom, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
So I think they they have all that stuff planned as well, and it'd be interesting to kind of hopefully maybe eventually sit down with them and ask them, what's your thought process on that? Do you have similar play menus every single week, or is it something that you guys reload every week? Which obviously we didn't have a chance to sit down and ask them. And
right.
Who knows? That's their own stuff too. So.
Sure it is.
Yeah.
Well, the last two, the other two big things you talked about was, they went a whole period where certain days they'd go front side pin and pull, and certain days they'd go backside of inside zone. But you were really excited about that as well, and how they set that up, and how they ran that with the quarterback, running back, and being able to, obviously you do backside of inside zone because that's going to be the running back's read most of the time, front side A to backside, whatever it is for them, and then pin and pull, you get the front side and get that running back getting used to, if it gets logged, getting out around, if it gets kicked, getting up inside that kick out.
I love the way they set up that drill, and again, so they'd go, like we said, they'd go 2 huddles. They're going team on 2 ends, right? So they've split it. So they do that for 5, maybe 10 minutes, right? They do their 2 periods. Then they go back apart. So when they'd go apart, they'd have a plan for what they're doing. So it's kind of like super fast tempo plays against each other, and then they'd go back. They're still working on fundamental skills, but it wasn't like they were going super fast.
Yeah.
But to me, that was the coolest thing that Coach Austin had done with the run game. So he had left tackle, left guard, center on the left hash, and they had a QB and a running back. And they were just running their inside zone to the right, but it was all backside combos.
Yeah.
All right. Who was the scout team was the other lineman. So you had 3 linemen there. He had 3 other linemen being the scout look.
There you go.
So you just boom, boom. They could get reps. Just go, they go, and he could just tell the look. Okay, I want a backside 5, a backside shade, and a linebacker in the nest.
Yeah.
All right, and they'd run it. And he'd give the stunt. They go to the right side. They're doing the same thing with center, right guard, right tackle, and they're running inside zone to the left. And the back's getting reps. They could have any number of backs, any number of quarterbacks. Sometimes he'd have the end upfield. They hand it off. Sometimes the end would crash, and he'd pull it. So you could still run zone read too. But they do that for 5 minutes, and it was just a boatload of reps of those guys going. And then when you switch, what do? 3 scout team guys, they just flip. Just go back and forth.
Easy.
So it was money. And then I thought, they didn't do pin pull that day. You and I talked about it today at practice at Iowa State. But you could do the same thing with your pin pull, run it front side. And give all your different looks. You want to do front side pin pull, front side pin pull, front side pin pull. Well, that's what the ball's hitting.
Yeah.
So running the boundary to the left, running the boundary to the right. So all those guys are getting used to those skills, your different calls. Okay, is the tackle going down on a 3? Yeah, we're going to bring it down on the 3. Well, now he's in a 2. Okay, cool. Tackle's going to be out. Guard,
Guard's
got him.
Center,
Center, you're going to be the guy.
Yeah.
And I think that the running back gets used to being able to follow that second puller.
Sure.
Have it fit differently. Linebacker's gonna box it. Okay, now I got to stick it.
Yeah.
He's gonna spill it to the next guy. Understand who's my guy that I got to beat. So I think you could get a ton of fantastic reps. And again, you're not killing each other on it. You got scout offensive linemen. You get through. You're going through your paces. You learn how to block all these things and make your calls, and go. I think you do with all your run schemes.
Yeah. Well, the other interesting thing too was how short some of these periods were. So the big one was 7-on-7, and we had talked about how with 7-on-7 it was cool for high schools because they'd have 2 7-on-7s, both of them 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? But for a high school, it'd be cool because you could have offensive emphasis for the first part of practice, first 5 minutes 7-on-7,
Yep.
and then the second part of 7-on-7 later on in the practice. Now that's defensive, the opposite emphasis.
Yeah.
Now those kids get to work both sides of the ball. So that was kind of interesting to me. So how'd they kind of set up 7-on-7 and they have it on both sides of the field too, and how'd they do it with 5 minutes?
Yeah, they normally do. So Shenander said they just didn't do it that first day because they felt like we'll just focus on our team stuff going 2.
Yeah.
So the kids kind of would gradually move into it. But he said most of the time, yes, they have 2 groups of 7-on-7 going on. So again, one's going north, one's going south. All right, and they're going, like you said, 5 minutes as fast as they possibly can. All right. The other thing that they did too is they had managers that would walk towards the quarterback, so it wasn't him just back there patting the ball.
Yeah.
And there's no rush, but they just walked towards him. And they had things on their back, so they had to kind of find throwing lanes, stuff like that. That was really awesome. But again, I think in 5 minutes, if you're running 2 groups, think of all the reps that you're getting. You have 14 guys on the field.
Yeah.
On one side, you got 14 guys on the field. On the other side, and boom,
you're going.
Next
yeah,
group,
you're getting a lot of reps.
And it's just rep. Okay, and you said, teams that need to play guys both ways.
Yeah.
So, okay, good guys are on offense right now, right? next time you guys do 7-on-7, because they went back to 7-on-7 later on. They did a 5-minute period, boom, then they went back
slowed it down, like you said.
Slow down, breakdown period, like your half line or your routes on air. Then they'd come back together, they'd do another 7-on-7 period. And you could say, okay, defense guys, now you're over there, you guys have the emphasis. We're going to run a ton of plays at you. So I just think, again, they're not killing guys running, the 20-minute 7-on-7 segments, just brain damage, man. I mean, and as much as you need that stuff, I just think you could be way more efficient with the time.
Sure.
They got it all done in 10 minutes. I mean, it was awesome. And I think if you would think about practice that way, you and I we're talking, you could do inside run opposite that.
Yeah.
I mean, because what are the offensive line and the D line doing? Pass pro, one-on-one pass pro. And again, I mean, you still keep your one-on-one pass pro, but hey, coach, let's do an inside period against each other for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And you're down there and you're just repping how fast can we go with the run game?
As many as we can get. Yeah.
So I mean, and again, schools that have less guys, take your linebackers. You'd have your second linebackers down here in inside run. Your first linebackers are at 7-on-7.
Yeah.
Switch
them up
when you go the next time. So I mean, I just think for me it opened up my mind. I remember calling you when I was coming back, and I'm like, Harper, I'll never practice the same way again. If I'm running a practice, I'm in charge.
Right.
But I mean, it was life changing for me, man, big time.
That's awesome. It's great to hear.
Yeah.
All right. Hope you guys liked that. Obviously, great stuff from Coach Walz. We got to go to Iowa State today, so that was exciting. Hopefully, we'll get to do another one of these about that and some of the other colleges. Hopefully, you guys like this, and hopefully, we can do some more of these because it was fun. Obviously, we probably won't be in the same state when we do it. This is kind of cool, but maybe we can get back on it if the guys like this and throw some of these up there and let us, kind of explain some of that stuff out because it's really cool and it's kind of what we've gone to now as much as we can as far as clinics are great and we've gone to some and the really cool ones, in my opinion, are like I go to the one in Texas, Dallas area coaches clinic because we get to hear from high school coaches, but a lot of the really good stuff you can get is having some hookups, and I'm lucky enough to have with you and Coach Wilkinson and Coach Alexander and those guys. But if you've got that hookup, being able to go to those colleges and get some of that knowledge spread out, even if, like I said, it's not us giving you, hey, this is what they call this, and this. It still is, how do they set up practice? And you can see, because we've been to some where we weren't as impressed with, and we've been to, obviously, the one like Nebraska where you're like, wow, that it really changes how you would do things and how you even think about a practice.
And that's the thing. I mean, people would be like, well, I don't run UCF's offense. I don't run Oregon's offense. You can do this at Broken Arrow where you guys smash people.
Yeah.
North Dakota State might do some of those things. I mean,
Sure.
I don't know, but I think to me that's the stuff that helps your program.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need to go there and figure out what are their 5 best pass plays.
Yeah.
I mean, y'all got your favorite pass plays. Y'all got your favorite run plays or whatever. How can you teach it better?
Yeah.
How can your young guys learn it faster? How can you get to that page 2 stuff? If we're stuck on teaching who to block for 3 months, we're not being very efficient about how we're teaching it. So I think, to me, that's where you go get the real gold. It's not you sitting there listening to a guy for an hour and he's created a presentation. You're not learning the inside stuff. Yeah. So you got to go to these places if you have the opportunity. If you guys don't, that's what we're trying to do. Bring it to you guys.
Perfect. Well, hope you guys enjoyed that. Subscribe to us. We got our podcast on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Google Play. Subscribe to YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. All that good stuff. Make sure you check out our sponsors. We got Sky Coach and Powerlift, Team Attack Academy, Audible. All those guys. Help us out with that, right? Those are guys that we truly believe in. We don't want to just BS you guys. We don't want to make you pay for anything, but those are guys that we've talked to, and we truly believe in those guys. Yeah. If they're going to be a sponsor, they're people we believe in, and they're guys that we think are all about football and can help you guys out. So help us out, help them out. Go at least check them out, right? Go send them an email. Go see how they might be able to help your team. It's either guys that's helped us in the past, guys that we're still working with, but it's people that we really think can help your program because they've helped our program, and they're guys that they're not the guru guys, they're not the big time guys of selling, even if their companies are huge. They're just down to earth, good dudes, good men and women that just care about football and want to continue the game of football. So you guys go check that out, subscribe to all our stuff, and we appreciate it.